with all the talk about the quarterback class, we forget about that 30%, 3/10 of the top 10 could be wide receivers. Could have 3 quarterbacks and 3 wide receivers possibly in the top 10. To talk about that and everything about the NFL draft before he heads off to Cleveland and be part of NFL Network's draft coverage is Steve Smith, Sr. How are you, sir?
What's going on? I mean, that's a setup to be able to follow DJ on that one.
Well, look, we had him on in November to break down the best football player on film, and, he nailed it.
Yes, he did.
And I just wanted to play that just to let everyone know that he's ready for draft week too. So,
man, I was listening, and at first I was like, "Who?" And then I started to follow on. It's like, "Oh my God!" Like when he hit through with the Willie Beeman, I was like, "I'm looking through my paperwork. Oh, I'm missing him."
Yeah, his comp, Willie Beeman's comp is Jamie Foxx. So that's his comp.
Yeah.
He looks just like Jamie. It's kind of crazy. So let's get into the wide receiver conversation with you, Steve, and let's start with the Heisman Trophy winner that's in this group, DeVonta Smith, and the conversation about him is his weight being $166 and whether that automatically discounts him from being drafted in the top 10. I'd love to give you the floor on this subject matter.
That's interesting, and I kind of feel bad for him, because this process, until somebody actually picks him, that's the purpose of this process is to debunk and also just kind of bring forth the strengths, the weaknesses, and really with the summarization or summary of DeVonta Smith, the one thing that I'm looking at that, he may not want to look at and hear that is his size. And, of course, a guy of my stature, they're going, well, how can you say size? Well, there's a difference between size and build. And I think what people are looking at is DeVonta Smith's build. And his build, when I'm talking about build, I'm talking about, you look at a guy like Elijah Moore, 5'9", he's 180, 190, right? And looking at some of the things that other guys are doing, 5'9", Jalen Waddle, 5'9", 180, right? And then you're looking at some of these other guys, Nico Collins, 6'4", 215. Well, why does that all play into what's going on? Well, when you're going to draft possibly in the top 6, he can go anywhere from 1 through 6, and possibly if 6 or 7 doesn't pick him, he can drop even lower into the 15s and 20s. And here's why. What position has he played primarily in college? He's played in a position where he's moved around a lot, right? And when you move around a guy a lot, especially in college, there is a learning that you have to adapt to, a learning curve. And in that learning curve, if you're already what we call, or what adults call, or parents, hey, I got one kid that's light in the pants. Well, if you're playing football and you're a fist fight in a phone booth, that's what DBs and wide receivers do on that island on the outside, pressed up. You got to be able to take one and give one. And when I look at his stature and I look at him, I look at his glutes down to his cankles. It ain't a lot of meat back there. It's not thick. He's fast. But what is going to happen when he's going against a Jalen Ramsey who's 6'2", 6 feet, 200-something pounds, and you 166 pounds, and a dude is 215, benching 225, 25 times, and he hits you one good time, and your little small shoulder pads come unbuckled because the only thing holding it up is sweat. That's gonna wear on you. And then over 77 plays, that over time. Now, if he plays in a Z where he's playing with a Z with the tight end, he's off the ball so they can put him in motion. But if he's in the X, stationary stand, and he has no motion to give him free, he just has to be able to beat the corner one-on-one, create his own play. Yes, he did it in college. Hooray, that's great. But that doesn't guarantee the carryover in the National Football League. And I think that's what teams are looking at. That's why teams have a legitimate question. And he has the opportunity wherever he goes. He gets, however long he gets to play, he gets a legitimate opportunity to prove all the people like myself and you and everyone else that says maybe he may have been too light at 20-something years old, which is the case. But he can grow into his body. How much, how thick, and how big he will grow into his body will ultimately be up to him and the weight and the strength and coaching staff or whatever organization he goes to. But it is a legitimate question when you're handing out a couple of millions of dollars.
5'9", you were coming out of Utah. Did you have questions about your size, Steve?
Absolutely, you had questions. 5'9", 176 pounds, of course. I'm also, I haven't gotten taller. However, 5'9", 197. At the height of when I was lifting and started to get in lifting, I was about 205, 202. And guess that was the year that I actually tore my hamstrings 3 times, right? Because my body frame could not sustain that much weight. So my ideal weight was about 195. And I was strong enough, and my body could sustain it. And how I know, even at 42, when I'm a little heavy, around, like most people, Thanksgiving, Christmas, right? When I'm a little heavy, first thing starts to let me know that I'm heavy is my back. And when my back starts to get tight when I'm doing the regular stuff, that's when I know I'm getting too heavy. That's just knowing my body. My body is, when I was playing, was at perfect strength, speed, and endurance and durability, about 195 and 197. If I got below 195 or I got above 197, my body started to talk to me. Tightening of hamstrings, quad, growing, hip flexors, all of those things did that, and that's why you get paid millions of dollars and you're considered a professional athlete, high octane, to be able to know how your body can operate and what fuel you need to fuel up this expensive engine.
So what you're saying is normally a team's coach, general manager, and maybe owner gets on the phone with a prospect before they draft him saying, are you ready to join this team? You're saying that whoever drafts DeVonta Smith, it could be the strength and conditioning coach that gets on first saying, are you ready? I mean, like literally that's what you're saying?
I don't think that'll happen, but I know that'll be the first or second person he meets once he's in a facility. They're going to have to see what he does well, what he doesn't, because you notice in all this stuff, he didn't bench, he didn't do this, he didn't do that because of those question marks. Smart on his part, but eventually you're going to have to get in the weight room. They're going to need to see what you can and can't do. And I didn't lift a ton of weights. I used a lot of body weights. I did a lot of my workout regimen with a weight vest on. So I wasn't huge into the lifting weights because back in the day, in 80s and 90s, what they say, if you lift weights too early, you stunt your growth. Well, I'm on a low man chart, so I didn't want to stunt the growth that I was going to receive. So I didn't lift weights. But as I got older and I got with the team, I got my own trainer, I started to figure out how I can lift a lot of body weight, a lot of weight vests to get me strong, to be powerful, but not making myself so bulky that I lost mobility and became stiff in my hips and my joints.
Steve Smith Sr. here on the Rich Eisen Show. So Ja'Marr Chase is the consensus best receiver on the board. If you're the Bengals, do you reunite him with Joe Burrow, or do you get Burrow the protection at the tackle position?
You get Burrows the protection. He's recovering from a knee injury. No quarterback can throw the ball efficiently and comfortably, especially after you just got your knee taken out and you got surgery. If you don't protect him, you got to protect him. You see what the Chiefs did? They decided, hey, let me go ahead and trade for a guy who doesn't want to be on the team. We need a left tackle. Our left tackle, Mike Remmers, couldn't block a shadow, and that's why Patrick Mahomes was running 400 and something yards, not advancing the football, but just ripping and running around the field just to save his life so he could be a dad before his daughter's born. So, just little things like that. Oh, I'm getting in rare form.
You're ready to go. Here I stop. Wow. I like it. I'm ready for Steve Smith, part of our draft coverage. So how special is Chase then? What do you think of him?
I think I think he's fantastic. There's a lot of wide receivers in this draft that are fantastic. I've never seen a draft thus far that you're talking about the first fit out of the first graded 50 players. I mean, 16 or 17 of those players are going to be offensive players. Some of the defensive players in Nashville, the last time we were all together, all those guys that were drafted in the first round defensively, man, these guys would not be drafted in a position they were drafted in this year's draft because it's so heavily offensive-minded players and ecstatic. So I think what I really love, all these big, rangy, tall, stiff, 6'3", 6'2", 210, 212 pounds. Man, those guys are going to be so far back. I love the fact that you got Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, 5'9", right? You got some guys that are barely 6 feet. Jalen Waddle, he's 5'9". Like, all these guys are little guys that are going to go out there and make so many plays. And I'm excited. The 6'1", the Josh Palmer, heck of a wide receiver for Tennessee. He's going to be down there in the third and fourth round because you just got so many young, speedy, athletic, shifty, difference-making playmakers that are below 6 feet, and I'm excited to see that. So,
Steve Smith, is Kyle Pitts the best receiver in the draft?
He is a tight end, darn it. He is a tight end. And
okay.
Yes, that's a bad man. Goodness gracious. I listen, guys like that, like Gronk, other guys in the league, tight end, Kelsey, and those guys just take other passes away from wide receivers. But those guys in there, rightfully so, they're difference makers, and you have to account for them in the pass game. And he obviously get with a team that will improve his blocking skills, but really he's a threat in the passing game, and that's all you need to know.
So who's the Justin Jefferson you think in this draft? Who could be the kid taken bottom half of the first round in the 20s, who has a chance to just be so dynamite that he's the offensive rookie of the year? Who do you got for me on that?
I like Elijah Moore. I think he can be. But I think also, too, Rich, you would agree, hopefully, is, and if you go to the right team, and that makes the biggest difference, right? Because if you go to a team that just doesn't have the understanding of what type of player you are, it can stunt your growth big time. So having a right team that understands how they should look at a player, just because he's the best available, he has to be best available in your system. Because if you're just grabbing a player because he's the best available and then you don't know what to do with him, that's just not good ball. That's just not smart drafting. That's no direction, and that's what gets teams in trouble, like the Jets, like the Bengals in the past, where you're just grabbing a guy because his 40 time is awesome, but he can't catch a cold, he can't run good routes, and you don't have a really good system to really enhance what his pros are and to limit what he doesn't do well.
So outside of the Chiefs, who's got that system that you think would just be any receiver goes there, they'll be lucky? What do you got for me on that?
I mean, if the 49ers get their stuff together, I mean, if they can add another guy in the rough like that go to match with
Debo and Ayuk,
with Debo Samuels and Ayuk, and I mean that's a team. What happens if the Vikings actually get their stuff together? What about Carson Wentz? If he's together and they got this dynamic run game going, and all of a sudden they got this young class of receivers who now you add another one or a tight end or somebody, they can get going. There's a lot of teams out there that can. How fast can they get things together?
When you say get things together for the Vikings, is that code for Cousins? Is that what that means, Steve?
No, I think Cousins hasn't been getting a fair shake.
Okay.
Cousins has done a great job. He's up there in the upper 70s in completion, but the defense has really let them down. Cousins won a playoff game, and everybody just kind of went quiet. Nobody said anything. So I think he's been. I'm just talking about collectively how the Vikings are defensively. They were not the team that we expected them to be, and Cousins was doing his job, but the defense, left him hanging at times.
So before I let you go, Steve, earlier this week I said, Matt Ryan's going to be a nervous guy this week, certainly on Thursday night, seeing what the Falcons are going to do. And, I asked Carson Palmer what's going through his mind. And Palmer gave us a great read of what could be going through Matt Ryan's mind. I'd love to ask you, with the report that teams are calling to see if Julio Jones is going to be acquirable because he's a salary cap casualty, and Ryan might be there, and they could draft Pitts. They could actually take a quarter. What do you think is going through Julio Jones's mind right now, Steve Smith?
Well, it's a new general manager, a new head coach. They've obviously had a conversation, hopefully, a number of conversations, and they probably presented this to him. And maybe and they let him know. They let him know, or he let them know that he wants to move on, and that's what's on the table. I don't really know. It just depends on what teams are kind of interested, unless to really know how excited he is. Matt Ryan won't be replaced this year, but I would tell you this. The Atlanta Falcons need to get a quarterback at some point, because here's why. Look at the quarterbacks that are available in 2022. Mitch Trubisky, Marcus Mariota, my main man, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the minivan himself, right? There is a lot of guys that are just going to fill a gap. But that isn't who they want to be long-term with a new general manager and a new head coach, or second-year head coach or second-year general manager. That you want a veteran. He's a veteran on the streets for a reason. And it's not because, he just didn't get along with his offense coordinator. There are some deficiencies these individuals on that list potentially will be. And you don't want your professional career that just started a year and a half ago to be on the line, because now you need a quarterback. There's no quarterbacks coming out of the draft next year that are like these guys. And there's definitely no quarterbacks that are scheduled to contracts to expire in 2022 that makes everyone run to the bank and make sure they sell some stocks and shares so they have enough money to sign these guys. Those guys aren't on that list.
All right, I'll bite. You call Fitzpatrick minivan because he's been everywhere, or because he's full of children? What do you got for me?
I got both. He's been everywhere and he's full of children, right? And guess what?
What?
For a long family trip, that's your guy. But you're not gonna win any. You're not gonna go far. He's not a guy that you. From Charlotte to Florida, I'll take Ryan Fitzpatrick. But if I'm going to Europe, I'm not rolling with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Steve Smith Sr., your A game is already sharpened, and I cannot wait to see you in Ohio in a couple days with the rest of the crew on NFL Network. Thanks for the call, Steve.
Appreciate it.
You bet. That's Steve Smith Sr. Have you ever heard Fitzpatrick called the minivan?
I have not. The
NFL's minivan. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.